Okay, this is a video about the consequences of what will happen after the Nova Kakhovka's breach and how this will transform Russia's invasion of
Kakhovka
Ukraine.
Dam is no more. Prior to June 6, 2023, the dam sat at a critical strategic junction. We have been discussing the issues surrounding it for the last 8 months, and so today's video will be a quick update on how it will affect the war, with a focus on 4 consequences: humanitarian problems for those downriver, the impediments it creates for Ukraine's counteroffensive, the situation over at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, and the water.
So, do you consider Nazi militants as having equivalent interest in NATO? Yes. What? Unless you're talking about the Nazi militants on the Russian side, in which case, no. But yes, 100%. Of course. It wasn't that long ago where, motherfucker, it wasn't that long ago when they directly were already like being trained by NATO. What are you talking about?
Water situation over in Crimea.
Also, NATO was literally made, like, when Germany entered NATO, when Germany's brought into NATO, they literally put Nazis, like, and I don't mean like, oh, these guys are Nazis because they're racist, like actual fucking Nazi generals in charge of NATO. So that's just basic NATO history.
But we begin with the more pressing humanitarian concerns.
I found them.
Mostly, this is the flooding that the areas downriver experienced immediately following the dam's destruction. Take a look at the satellite shot from a distance. The dam is over here. Kherson City is here. And the line of control at the time of the dam's destruction is the river flowing east to west, with Ukraine controlling north of the line and Russia controlling south of it. The natural coloration tells you what you need to know about which side of the river is most affected. Kherson City, to the north, is on relative high ground. Russian-controlled areas to the south are...
So, I wanna fucking say something here, because the Hegel but Poggers guy, the Hegel but Poggers Andy, said the exact opposite of this. Wait, what? Hasan, the generals weren't Nazis, they were apolitical commanders. This has been disproven a shit ton. My man said Nazi generals were actually apolitical. Bro, he's like, did they say that they were Nazis though? Like, actually? Like, I'm of the mindset that if you were like an artist at the time, and you, like, let's say, refused to fucking pledge your loyalty to Hitler, but you were still ultimately performing for Nazis due to the fact that they would kill you if you didn't, or whatever the fuck, that's fine. But, like, ultimately, if you're a fucking general, that is insane. My man, at a certain point, you're just saying, like, at a certain point, you're saying, like, Nazi generals were not actually Nazis. Clean Vermocht in 2023? Yeah. I don't like labels, bro. I just pulled this lever. I mean, we're not talking about Operation Gladio at this point. We're not talking about the stay behind forces and shit. I'm talking directly like Nazi generals that were put in positions of power in the immediate aftermath of World War II, or when Germany was added into NATO. These NATO generals had unusual backgrounds. They served in the Third Reich. Amid the Cold War, 2 German generals were among the few NATO commanders with direct experience fighting the Soviets, not to mention the Allies. In West Germany's case, the answer was obvious but complicated. Just 10 years earlier, Germany, even in defeat, had one of the best armies in the world. Yet the Wehrmacht had been corrupted into the servant of the odious and criminal Third Reich. Germany produced many great generals between 1933 and 45, but by 1955, many of them were dead, too old, or indelibly compromised by complicity in German war crimes or unquestioning subservience to Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. The challenge was to find enough former Wehrmacht generals with relatively unblemished records who were willing to return to uniform in late life. I love the way that they fucking wrote this article, dude. It's awesome. I love that, like, because this article is supposed to go, hey, there were Nazis in NATO, but, like, it wasn't as bad as you think. Dog, look at the apolitical commanders in my treaty organization. Adolf Bruno Heinrich Ernst Heusinger was a German military officer whose career spanned the German Empire, the Weimar Republic, Nazi Germany, and West Germany. He joined the German army as a volunteer in 1915 and later became a professional soldier. He served in the operations chief within the general staff of the high command of the German army of the Wehrmacht from 1938 to 1944. With the outbreak of the Second World War, German Army High Command assumed its wartime organization. Heusinger accompanied the field staff and assisted in the planning and operations of the invasions of Poland, Denmark, Norway, and France, and the Low Countries. He was promoted to colonel on the 1st of August, 1940, and became chief of Operation what is it? Operation Zabteilung. Did I say that good? Operation Zabteilung. October 1930, which made him number 3 in the Army's planning hierarchy after the Chief of the General Staff, Franz Halder, and the Deputy Chief of the General Staff / Chief Quartermaster, General Friedrich Paulus. After the invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941, the OKH became responsible primarily for planning operations in that theater, and the Armed Forces High Command, Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, was responsible for the theaters. Halder was replaced as the Chief of the General Staff in September. Zeitzler suffered a nervous breakdown and abandoned his post, and on the 10th of June, Heusinger temporarily assumed his office as Chief of the General Staff of the Army. In this capacity, he attended the meeting at Hitler's Wolf's Lair, and he was standing next to Hitler when the bomb exploded that had been planted by Klaus von Stauffenberg. Heusinger was hospitalized for his injuries in the explosion, but was later arrested and interrogated by the Gestapo to determine his role, if any, in the 20th of July plot. Although there was evidence that Heusinger had contacts with many of the conspirators, like all of the other high-ranking Nazi military leaders, there was no evidence to connect him to the plot. Well, he was there and, like, was injured, so clearly it doesn't seem like there was evidence. Like, there is your evidence. Oh, sure. Everybody who wore Hugo Boss between 1939 and 1945 and commanded German-speaking troops was a Nazi. Got it. According to the Heusinger's own autobiography, he published an essay, Denkschrift, which Hitler received very positively. Heusinger made all available information that he had on the conspirators who plotted against the Fuhrer. Like, there's an out there where you could just be like, you know, he might have had sympathies towards the plotters against Hitler because that's, like, you know, famously generals tried to assassinate him, which we're talking about the 20th of July plot. And he was like, no, dog, I snitched on the motherfuckers. Like, actually, I hated those dudes, okay? Are you fucking kidding me? He reaffirmed that he had not participated in the assassination plot since he felt an obligation to fulfill his duty as a soldier of the German Reich, despite his personal view that the war had been lost. After his release, he was placed on Führer Reserve, a reserve army of high-ranking Nazi military leaders awaiting assignments, and was not assigned another position until the 25th of March in 1945 when he was made Chief of Armed Forces Mapping Department. He was later taken prisoner by the Western Allies in 1945. HasanAbi over here acting like he wouldn't have snitched either out of self-preservation. Bro, I wouldn't even fight for, like, the American forces. Are you fucking crazy? Like, this notion, first of all, I'm out on that war shit, okay? I'm fucking piecing out so fast. if there's like an actual war that's happening and America is like, oh, we're drafting everybody, HasanAbi, time to, you know, take up arms, I'd be like, fuck no, dude. Are you kidding me? Are you fucking joking? You think I'm going to go fucking die for you, America? Suck my dick. You know what I mean? Get the fuck out of here, dude. Oh my Lord. I'd be piecing out so fast, dude. You wouldn't even recognize the top of the hour has happened. You would be like, what? It's 11 minutes in. Why is there a top of the hour ad break now? And I'd be like, listen. You know, you wouldn't see those ads either as long as you subscribe for $5 or for free with Twitch Prime. You know what I mean? Whew. Anyway, you can also get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. Same goes for Turkey, by the way. Get the fuck out of here. I'm not fucking going out to die for some rich motherfuckers, okay, that are going to make money. And you shouldn't either, for the record. Bullshit. There must have been a decade or two where getting a German with military experience who wasn't a Nazi was impossible. Trying to learn. Curious how that factors in. Thanks, bro. No, that's the point. As a matter of fact, this is where it ties into Gladio. Okay. Cold War very quickly started after or towards the end of World War II or immediately in the aftermath of World War II, where the United States was like, okay, we're done with the Nazi shit. Now it's time to, you know, deal with another problem, which is the biggest problem at hand, which will be the biggest problem for the next couple of decades. And that is the USSR. That is Russia. Okay? That is communism. So they had to basically bring up as many people who had a lot of anti-communist sentiment in every single war-torn country. The people who had actually liberated those countries, either internally with a form of resistance, whether it be fucking France or even in some instances, even Germany or any other place, were the communists. The communists were fighting against the Nazis. So the remaining people that were not, held under criminal charges, or the remaining people that basically had any kind of like combat experience, were anti-communists. And the anti-communists were the Nazis, or people who sympathized with the Nazis, or who fought alongside the Nazis, or in Germany's instance, West Germany specifically, directly fucking Nazis. Now, you could do one thing there and not ensure that the stay-behind forces of fascists and fascist sympathizers gain any kind of fucking prominence, especially so close to World War II's immediate aftermath. Or you could strategically start utilizing those fascists to do, you know, terror bombing campaigns and the like, to cause instability in countries like Italy, for example, in a direct effort to undermine the spoils that were supposed to go to the victors of World War II, the trade unionists, the social democrats, and the fucking communists in these countries. So in an effort to stop them from gaining any sort of prominence when they were seen as the liberators, understandably, the United States basically utilized, any amount of domestic terrorism they could in these countries by activating all the fucking remaining Nazis that were in these countries to do insane shit. Didn't happen, lol. I'll fight for Mexico. Didn't happen, lol. Lamau, oof, you got me. Fuck, lol. Still saying lol. You need to retake that Rutgers history class, brother. For us, what if you were our leader? 1991, not all now. Dog? Question mark. For the record, this does not mean that the USSR was not drafting Nazis on their side. They certainly were as well. Operation Paperclip is America's most famous, brain drain, if you want to call it that. Okay, but the USSR did similar things as well. It's just that I'm not Russian. I am American. No, they didn't. They didn't hire them, but definitely made them work for them. The Soviets didn't give them suburban life in Maine, though. I don't know enough. I actually don't know enough about like the comfortable existence of Nazi scientists and whatnot in the USSR. But I think this is what I was thinking of as well. I'll give you one example. They did not want to they wanted to try the Japanese war criminals, the USSR did. America was like, no, we're not doing that. Shut the fuck up. We need access to their incredibly valuable information in biological warfare, in germ warfare. Like 100%. Like the Russian side absolutely was more interested in at least like investigating and prosecuting, whereas the American side very deliberately was like, no, we're gonna take fucking all the chemical weapons that they fucking used, and we're gonna use them later against the USSR. Did the USSR put Nazis in charge of the army? No, then it's not the same, bro. The head of the NATO is a former Nazi. No, I know. I'm just giving you. I'm giving you an accurate assessment, okay, of what happened. It's ridiculous to, I'm just openly stating what happened, okay? Don't get fucking mad at me. Get mad at history. The USSR took a much more forced labor approach than the Americans. Only in a small percentage of cases, Nazis who had shown that they had literally re-educated, did they ever really free a Nazi. In Turkey, too, most infamously, the CIA literally used past Nazis to train the Grey Wolves in Turkey. People like Ibrahim Kaypakkaya were tortured to death during these operations. So the chat, the CIA utilized the Nazis as goals were aligned. Yeah, 100%. Grey Wolves, the ultra-nationalist party in the current leadership government, has direct roots to NATO and Nazi involvement. Anyway. I can't believe we just deep dove into this part of history, which is very odd that like people are completely oblivious to. No, America like didn't even put forward an effort to like re-educate these people. They just straight up were like, no, it's great. Thank you. We love your scientific research. Your scientific contributions will be utilized, possibly in Korea. To be fair, the USSR had a neutrality pact with Imperial Japan that lasted until 5 minutes before Japan surrendered. To imply the USSR was more forceful against Japan, not Germany, is kind of disingenuous in my opinion. No, the USSR did absolutely try to investigate and try in a court of law people like people that were involved in like the unit specifically in China. Whereas America sheltered them from said investigation very openly, and we're like, fuck no. Unit 731, yes. We're not doing that because we need the juicy tidbits and the juicy information that they have. Anyway, However, the USSR also utilized Nazi scientists, as I correctly told you. Okay, let's continue.
Swampy. They are at a lower elevation, so they will take the brunt of the flooding. The good news here is that fewer people live on the southern side. Also good news is that
Wait, I know Unit 731 is Japanese, chatters. I'm saying what Japanese soldiers did in China is what I meant. Manchuria, specifically. That's what I'm talking about. I don't know what you're correcting. I'm talking about what Japan did in China to Chinese people.
it took about 8 hours for water levels to peak downstream, giving some forewarning for evacuations. The bad news is that the flooding will not go away anytime soon. As we have discussed before, way further up north, Ukraine blew the Irpin River Dam at the beginning of the invasion to stall Russia's advance. More than a year later, residents in the floodplain are still recovering. Back down south, the problem is worse than it would appear. These parts of the dam are called sluices. Essentially, they are giant gates that the dam operator can use to control water flow. Despite the dam dividing the line of control, Russia determined the sluices' positions. 3 months ago, the most recent time we visited the dam, Russia had left one of the sluices down to lower the reservoir's level to about here, with speculation that the goal was to increase the Dnipro's width downriver without causing major flooding. As a result, the water level upstream had fallen to a record low 14 meters. But Russia then closed the sluices and then kept them sealed tight. Combined with winter snowfall, then spring melt and showers, the water level rose to a record 17.5 meters. In other words, just prior to the dam's destruction, Russia operated the dam in such a way to make the flooding the worst it could possibly be. There's also the long-term electrical consequence. The dam was a hydroelectric power plant generating 357 megawatts. That means the power for hundreds of thousands of homes has gone off the grid forever. But that is a problem for future Ukraine. The more pressing issue now is how the dam's destruction affects the military balance. A running theme we have covered in recent videos is how Russia must allocate its defensive resources, given Ukraine's upcoming counterattack. The central goal is to even out all of Russia's vulnerabilities, so that there is no obvious location for Ukraine to exploit. But the long-running problem that the Kremlin had was a manpower shortage. This mobilization announcement from September 2022 had mitigated some of the problem. However, losses from the winter Bakhmut campaign and elsewhere, combined with partisan warfare incursions near Belgorod and the redeployments necessary to stop them, have left Russia hungry for warm bodies. The flooding helps resolve that problem. It adds a natural barrier that will slow Ukrainian counterattacks across the river, especially as Russia destroyed Kherson's other river crossings during its November 2022 retreat. With Russia's ability to win in Kherson naturally higher, that frees up soldiers to move to other locations that are naturally more vulnerable. The timing of this does not seem like a coincidence. There were many whispers on June 5th, just one day before the anniversary of D-Day, that Ukraine had begun multiple probing runs, signaling that a counteroffensive was starting. The main concern for outsiders, however, is the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. It is situated upstream from the dam and is the biggest nuclear power plant in all of Europe. To wit, its 5,700 megawatt capacity puts the dam's hydroelectric plant to shame. Russia occupied it at the start of the war. A nuclear power plant in a conflict zone caused enough concern that the International Atomic Energy Agency and other watchdogs.
This photo is so funny. I'm sorry. They're like you. This is a very serious situation, but it's funny to see like this guy juxtaposed with a pink guy who's just like kind of there with his phone, and this guy's like, "Oh, this is devastating." And the other guy's just like, yeah, let me take a fucking photo with my with my phone.
Recommended that it go offline. In September 2022, the reactors indeed went into shutdown mode, meaning they stopped producing new heat. However, residual heat lasts for years, both for the reactors and the cooling pools of spent fuel like these that are also housed on site. Consequently, the power plant needs...
What news piece did all the left streamers recently watch that everybody's suddenly saying juxtapose? Yeah, dude, totally. It's we all watched one news piece. That's why we're saying juxtapose. It's not something that I say all the fucking time.
A constant stream of water to prevent radiation from leaking. The problem is that the river is the source of that water, and the dam was responsible for maintaining the necessary water level. According to the IAEA report produced immediately after the dam's destruction, if the water level drops to 12.7 meters, the pumps stop working. That's the bad news. The good news is that they saw this coming. Operators can overpump water into cooling channels so that there is a reserve supply. Meanwhile, the power plant has a cooling pond designed to stay above the river's water level as a safety precaution. Combine this with how the generators have been on a sustained shutdown, and the IAEA estimates that the existing water will last for months. Thus, there is plenty of time to find longer-term solutions. In turn, we are not looking at a Chernobyl or Fukushima-level incident. But don't rest too easy. The power plant is still on the front lines. Indeed, the plant has been struck before, and if the cooling pond were to be hit with a missile and spring a leak, the problems would be more immediate. The final consequence worth noting involves the North Crimean Canal. That is the aqueduct that takes water from the Dnipro River, winds it through Kherson Oblast, and delivers it all the way to the Crimean Peninsula. After Russia annexed the peninsula in 2014, Ukraine shut off the water supply. As you would expect, one of the first things that Russia did in the...
Yeah, that's like, I mean, I don't think me and this person's like politics probably align on this, because like I don't think it's just like, you know, turning off the faucet. Like they fucking damned it. They damned a canal that was built during the USSR that was necessary for, you know, Crimean people's survival.
February 2022 invasion was to turn back on the spigots. However, the dam's destruction has forever resolved the situation. The canal will run dry.
Yeah.
That is because, by blocking the water here, the dam also supplied the water level necessary to fill the canal here. Both sides currently claim that the other one was responsible for the dam's destruction. But if Russia was responsible, it strongly signals that the Kremlin is pessimistic about holding the current territorial status quo. That is because the canal is vital to irrigation, both within Kherson and in Crimea. And if peace were to magically appear tomorrow, it will be a long time before the water problem is solved. If you want to know more about the war,